going to start by asking you guys 4 questions, 4 statements. And I'm looking for a verbal or a nonverbal cue if you agree. Are you ready? Here we go. The harder I work, the better I get. Okay, I see some. I enjoy getting feedback about my performance. You can learn things, but you can't change how intelligent you are. What about this one? Only a few people can truly be good at sports. You have to be born with it. Okay, what a great start. Looks like I can just get off stage. No, before I begin, I just wanted to invite you guys to adopt a developmental bias for the next 15 minutes or so, or maybe for the rest of your lives. That's a bias around seeing the potential in yourself and others. It seems like you guys are already way on track, so I really love that. That's a growth mindset. It's about seeing the potential that someone can have, not just where you are now, but where you can be next. Now, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about how do you create the conditions for success. And there are 2 things that are essential in that: belief and belonging. And without those 2 things, it's really difficult to reveal the best of who you are and the people around you, and also the best of who you will become. And I know about this because I had the opportunity to stand on top of the Olympic podium and feel the weight of that gold medal around my neck. And I wouldn't have been there had it not been for the environment that I was in that created the conditions for me to have the best day when it mattered most. I've also been in environments where there was an absence of belief within myself and others and belonging. And I know firsthand how hard it can be to operate on those conditions. Now for me, I started wrestling in high school in grade 9. It seems like an opportunity to wear spandex and wrestle with boys. And I fell in love with it right away. I was always kind of had potential in the sport, but I actually never won the biggest tournaments in high school. I never won high school provincials. I never won high school nationals. I couldn't quite figure it out. But I had this passion and this drive and this desire. And so I moved across the country to go to the university, to be in a facility where I could be with the best coaches, the best training partners, the best facilities, because I wanted to put myself in a position to be my best. And that first year in that environment, I was pointless. Like literally, I could not score a single point in the room. I didn't make the varsity team my first year. And I remember at the end of the season, we had the one last tournament, the junior national championships. And I remember kind of like not really sure if I should go, if I was going to be successful. And my coach said, "Erica, just give yourself a shot. Get on the plane." And I knew that there was 2 things that I could be certain about that I had over all of my competitors. That nobody had gotten taken down as many times as I had, but nobody had gotten up and kept going. And so I went to the Junior National Championships, and I won, and I earned my first opportunity to represent Canada at the Junior World Championships that summer. And then I came back to the wrestling room. I got taken down a lot more times, and I continued on working towards this big dream that I had of going to the Olympic Games. I actually lost my first opportunity at going to the Olympic Games. I stepped out of bounds with 30 seconds left. And so another 4 years later, 8 years after I moved to this university, to this training environment, I earned the opportunity to represent Canada at the Olympic Games. And I remember sitting down with my coach 8 months out from the Rio Olympic Games, and he looked at me and he said, "Erica, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I don't believe you can do." And he set the table for this belief, unwavering, unconditional, that he had in me to get through what we were about to do together. And then he threw the kitchen sink at me. We brought in training partners from all around the world, Taiki from Japan, Svetlana from Moldova, men and women from across Canada, so that every single day I was pushed and challenged by people that were better than me, that were fresh, that were pushing me beyond what I thought I was capable of. And the training was so difficult. What was even worse was the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty that I felt at every single step. I had been working for over a decade towards this one goal. And I felt like as I got closer and closer and closer, those voices in my head got louder. You're not ready. You're not going to be good enough. You don't belong here. And I remember 3 weeks out from the Rio Olympic Games, I remember getting ready for the practice in the mirror, and I couldn't even look at myself because I was so scared by that person that I saw in the mirror. And all I could do to get through that training was just set this one little goal: just stay in your stance. Stay in your wrestling stance. That's the first thing they teach you. Bend your knees, hands out. That's a wrestling stance, kid. Get out there. And I was representing Canada at the Olympic Games in a couple weeks, and that was my only goal. That's all I could muster. Because I had just so much fear and doubt and uncertainty. And so I got my hair done. I go down the stairs. I walk into the little tiny padded room that was the wrestling room at the University of Calgary. We warmed up, we did our technical block, and then we started live wrestling. And just my goal: stay in your stance, stay in your stance. And it was the last 2 minutes of practice, and my coach blew the whistle. I got in my stance, my hands were ready. I was wrestling my opponent. He changed his levels and he attacked. And I changed my levels instinctually, and then boom. Our heads collided. I fell back onto the mat, pouring sweat, starting to feel the warm blood trickle down my head. I had cut open my brow, and I remember getting up from that mat, walking out of the room, not looking at anyone, not saying anything. And in just my heart, I was like, I'm done. Send somebody else. I can't do this. And I went into the locker room and I just crumbled onto the ground, crying, bleeding, sweating everywhere. And in that moment, I thought about giving up. And then I remembered that little girl that came across the country to be great, and what differentiated me, how many times I had gotten taken down. But more important than that, how many times I had gotten up and kept going. And so I decided to get up one more time. I got 6 stitches put in my eyebrow. I got them taken out the day that we flew to the Olympic Games. And we all know how the story ends. But people ask, they ask, what was the best feeling that you had at the Olympics? Was it standing on top of the podium, belting out the national anthem? No. The best feeling that I had was walking into the venue the morning of competition, before warm-up, before any wrestling had happened. The best feeling that I had was the moment I walked in, because I felt 10 feet tall. I felt vibrating with energy. I was ready, because nothing could take me down. I had already become a champion through the process, through this belief from my coach, my team, myself, that had buoyed me through these dark moments. And it's easy to believe in yourself when things are going well, when you're having success. But how do you believe in yourself? How do you cultivate this deep sense of belief through your darkest moments? And for me, I always relied on 4 key things. I relied on self-talk, that narrative that I told myself. And when I couldn't think of anything original or positive, I resorted back to 3 key I am statements that I would tell myself before I walked onto every match. I would say, I am calm, I am powerful, I am confident, I am ready. And that was my cue, my signal. I used visualization. I visualized overcoming small technical challenges, but I also visualized myself how I wanted to feel in these moments of challenge. I used breathing. I talked about I am, but I breathed in and out. I used breathing to drop an emotional anchor in this storm. You can use breathing to dial down when you're super aroused, but you can also use breathing to dial up that energy and that intensity. And finally, I used micro goal setting. Just stay in your stance. Something super small that can help you just take that first step. And I think it's pretty difficult sometimes to take that first step, but through belief, through instilling it in others, through cultivating it in yourself, That's how you can take that first step into the unknown with the certainty of power within you. Now, I've talked about what's within you, but what about what's around you? The second key thing to create those conditions for success is belonging. But what is that? I think we all know what it feels like when you don't belong in a room, that gut feeling that's in your veins, in your visceral. But how do you create that? What does it mean? I think in its simplest terms, belonging is when you have a yes to 3 simple questions. Are we connected? Are we safe? And do we share a future? And if you're able to answer yes in those environments, that's an environment where you have a sense of belonging. And you create that very simply through the energy exchange between one person and another, through individualized experience, telling them that unique value that they bring, and through a future orientation, that this is a relationship that's not just transactional, that's not just here now, but will continue on into the future. And belonging is simply the smallest single thing that you can do to create a difference in someone else's life. I remember flying back from the Olympic Games, my bag weighed down by that Olympic medal. And I landed in the airport with my friends, my family, my old teammates from my hometown. And there was one of my teammates. I mentioned to you I had never won high school provincials. I would have been the first woman from my hometown to do it. But my teammate, she won it the year after I left. And there she was at the airport, almost 8 years later, with her high school provincial gold medal. And I laughed and I hugged her. I said, let's wrestle for that medal. I'm just a little bit competitive. But she grabbed me and pulled me in and she said, Erica, I wouldn't even have ever wrestled had it not been for you after that first practice saying, hey, good job, I'll see you tomorrow. And so that sense of belonging is something that can be so simple. She's like, I wasn't gonna come back, but you said that to me. And I came back, and now she won. She's a coach. She's creating a better legacy and a future for youth in our city. And so I invite you guys all, when you leave tonight, think about maybe that person who can't look themselves in the mirror, maybe that person who's not gonna come back tomorrow. To create the conditions for success for yourself, for your team, for your communities. Think about what is the smallest single thing that you can do to make a difference in that person's life. And that's how you create the conditions for success. Thank you.